What we need to do is really focus on the efficiencies of our shop and the product that creates, and how do we build better, kind of more standardized product for people at lower prices.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast, a regular discussion with building industry professionals. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Jason Webster, co-president and owner of Huntington Homes in East Montpelier, Vermont. You can find the Fine Homebuilding Pro Talk podcast and the original Fine Homebuilding podcast at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. You can leave feedback and ask questions there too. Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, Patrick, thanks for having me.
So we were introduced because you wrote a really well-written email to the regular podcast in reference to a discussion that we had about why modular construction hasn't really taken off in the residential sector. And you wrote a well-reasoned email, so I got in touch with you and you agreed to be on the show, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Can you first start off by telling me about your business?
Sure. So we are business is Huntington Homes. We're a modular company. We've been building modular homes in Vermont since 1978. The company, the quick history of the company is, Huntington comes from the original owner, Hank Huntington, who was a dealer for one of the original modular home companies called Continental Homes. And he kind of doing a bunch of homes in central Vermont, through the 70s, decided that they thought they could build them better themselves, and so he decided to create a plant, Huntington Homes. And my father was one of the first employees of the business. My father was was hired to figure out really how to do it. He was a shop teacher at a local high school, and builder nights and weekends. And somehow they got connected, and he kind of went into the shop and figured out how to do it. My father ran the company. When the company first started, it was very much like every other modular home company or manufacturer, where, the manufacturer was really kind of a wholesaler that sold through a builder dealer network. And we ran that way. The company ran that way through the 80s. There was a second plant that was built in Orange, Massachusetts in the late 80s that did not survive the kind of tank of 89. My father had the opportunity to purchase part of the company in 93, the balance of it in 95, where he really kind of took over and turned it into the company that he wanted to, and really what the company is today, which is a little bit different. We operate a little bit different than the way the rest of the industry works. Most of the industry still works very much with a manufacturing, like kind of a wholesale division, selling through the manufacturer as a wholesaler, kind of selling through local dealer networks, where that dealer may or may not offer you kind of full general contracting services.
And these are homes that we would normally associate with a manufactured house lot, a trailer, right? It's like you go to the
So there's two lines in there. There's the HUD code mobile homes, chassis underneath them, that are definitely still sold on lots. Where they'll have some display homes on the lot where you can look at them, or maybe somebody orders one and those go off to a factory. And those factories, I think, are primarily in Pennsylvania, Indiana. Modular historically was also sold on the lots. We definitely had some dealers with lots in the 80s. Modular really isn't sold like that anymore. For the most part, modular is sold. It's through websites. It's through these dealer networks that are kind of sprinkled all over the place that are selling stuff. But we in the 90s really pulled away from that dealer base and started selling everything direct to client. Whereas that's still what we do today, is sell everything direct to client. We have also, and we do that based out of Vermont. We do that all over New England. Um, we also locally have started general contracting stuff as well. So things in kind of central and northern Vermont, clients can come and work with us for we're a full building company. We will handle everything from excavation to move in.
Are these custom homes, or are these like a standard set of plans that you guys offer?
So we have three kind of design paths that we work down through. The majority of what we build is what we call a design path called the stock homes path, which is where we on our website have 70 kind of standard starting floor plans to work off of. Clients can kind of choose through those. We offer modifications to those plans. And then from a material standpoint, it's really kind of it's a choose your own adventure within our curated selections of what we're allowing clients to select through. So siding types, wall insulation types, windows, mechanical systems, all of that. We then have we have a stock home path. We have a custom home path that we also do, where we will work off of clients' designs. We don't like to. It's not our preferred way. On that path, we encourage them to work with design professionals, architects, at least through schematic design, and then we will kind of work it from there. Custom homes really are, they're one-off homes. They can be sky's the limit. I don't ever argue to a client client that we are going to be a more cost-effective way to build a custom home versus any custom home builder. It's a one-off house. There's really no efficiencies that the shop and the shop systems are pushing to a client with that. Which takes us to the full other side design path. It's a new product of ours we call True Home, which is where we have really spent a lot of time looking at understanding and knowing where the efficiencies and how the process of our shop works, and designed homes around that, so that we can really push value to a client with in-plant construction. We're using its forms and shapes and materials that are easily repeatable, and are using kind of components that are off the shelf for us. Those homes are not just your kind of basic builder grade homes either. Those homes are all real, honest finishes. No, we're avoiding plastic where we can. High recycled content. We're looking at kind of what the materials are. Those homes are also all zero energy ready. There's no fossil fuels, mechanical equipment in those homes. They're enhanced wall assemblies, triple pane windows, high levels of air sealing, to where just a ductless mini split heating system will
And
work.
what kind of numbers are we talking about for the respective types of homes you build?
So we do total homes. So we, in terms of a modular company, we're on the smaller side. Mm-hmm. We do 70 to 75 homes a year. Probably 20 of those homes are where we're acting as the full general contractor, and the balance of them are where we're providing module components direct to the client.
And what do you see as the primary advantages? In our regular podcast discussion, we pointed out that you have to heat and light a building. Obviously, the climate control helps the materials. Prevents damage to them while the home is under construction, unlike when it's being built on a lot. Are there other advantages to building in a factory?
I think there's some real kind of production advantages to the efficiencies in the system allow each person to be more kind of productive. Before COVID, I used to love touring people through the shop, because one of the things that I would always kind of point out to people at the end of a tour, as they just walk down through our shop, as they see what we're doing every day, we build module components. We build a house in 96 hours inside our shop. And we are, at 70 homes a year. That's a house and a half a week that is coming through our shop.
And how many folks does it take to build a house?
That's the thing, is that that is about 75 employees. 65 of them are production employees or 60 of them are production employees on the floor. Each employee builds more than a house a year. And there isn't kind of this. It's not extreme makeover home edition, right, where people are racing and jumping over each other and scrambling. There is a very just constant hum in our shop of people just kind of very efficiently doing their part of the build. There are very few people in our shop wear tool belts. Tools are, in racks on carts, right where they need to be. They have, sleds or sleighs where their tools are at, and they kind of move them around where they go. It's really efficient.
So I've been to one modular plant, and it was eye-opening for me. They build in a method that conventional stick builders would find very unusual, very odd. You start with a drywall layer and you physically glue framing on top of it, and then you do the mechanicals in the stud or joist cavities, and then you insulate, and then you put the siding on last. Are your modules constructed similarly?
So I actually find the way that site builders build odd. I think that I think that the way there are some real benefits in the way that we build inside the shop. And so, yes, we build walls inside out. So we start with framing. That framing is built on a wall table, laying down at a nice, comfortable height. And then we put the drywall down on that wall while it's laying down, and then cranes lift those walls and bring them and set them in place. One of the real benefits about building that way is when we get to mechanical rough-in, specifically of the electrical on exterior walls, is that we're cutting all our electric devices in from the outside going in. What that allows us to do is, after we pull all our wires and we're looking at the backside of all our electric boxes, we kind of cover the whole back of the box with foam. So we're not only do we air seal the penetration of the box with drywall, but we also air seal the knockouts of the box itself. To really get a kind of a much tighter wall assembly. We then we use all dense pack cellulose as an insulation product. So we're on the outside, we can now insulweb the outside of the walls. We can see what we're doing. We can dense pack it and then sheathe it.
Can I ask you a question related to insulating? I've seen that process done. It's labor intensive versus installing bats. What's the rationale for the dense pack cellulose?
We feel it's a better product, that it's an actual R value in the cavities. There's also, kind of a materials environmental impact of the cellulose versus the fiberglass. So recycled content. Plus, it's basically a grade one because of the dense pack method. It is a grade one install every time. It's a perfect install every time. And then we also have multiple wall assemblies that we work through that range from everything from your standard 2x6 wall assembly. We have a version of I think what is called a Bonfigli wall assembly.
Pioneered in Fine Homebuilding. Well, pioneered by Steve Bonfiglioli. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do that. We do that. And that is actually part of our True Home line, is that wall assembly. And then we do 10-inch double studs and we do 12-inch double studs.
So how complete are the modules when they leave the factory? I'm assuming they don't have floor finishes or siding, but I'm betting they have windows and an air barrier and a weather WRB.
Yeah, so I really focus on, and I think where we really drive value to a client is a completed building envelope in the factory. When it comes down to, door hardware, we are an on-site builder, really aren't going to do that any more effectively than they are. But framing is done, mechanicals are all roughed in, air sealing is done, insulation is in. On the outside, we're sheathed with plywood. We tape all our plywood seams. Windows are in, flash properly, weather-resistant barriers on. On the interior, at a minimum, drywall is hung, tape, painted. And then we do also offer interior materials as well if somebody wants them. So we do offer interior doors, cabinets, plumbing fixtures, light fixtures.
Those things are not installed. They're just in the module when they're delivered. Is that correct?
They are installed.
Uh,
They are installed. So there are kitchen sinks traveling down the road inside those boxes.
that's cool.
We find with most of our clients, there are some materials that you just can't install in the factory. Hardwood flooring. Hardwood flooring would never survive the temperature and the moisture swings of traveling down the road and being installed on site. So we don't do that. And so we find, all of our clients are kind of usually end up choosing some of our finishes, but then doing some of their own finishes once the modules are on site.
You mentioned that some of them are finished up by your own crews. What's the other model?
So the other model is what we call it a modules with set crew package. So client is working directly with us for the module components, the stuff that we build in our shop. They're also working direct with a local contractor who is putting the foundation in the ground to one of our plans. We then always handle delivery to the site. We supply a crane and we supply what we call a set crew, which is to put the modules on the foundation, making them airtight, watertight, structurally secure, including a finished roof. Then the client's contractor moves in from that point, doing what we call the on-site button-up work. When the modules leave our shop, they're kind of as completed as possible individual pieces. But after they've been set, they need to be stitched together from a carpentry and mechanical standpoint, and that's what that local contractor does.
Interesting. I've heard builders who site build homes deride modular construction, criticizing the quality of materials and their energy efficiency. Why do you think they give you guys a hard time?
I think we deserve it historically. I think when you go back to the beginnings, modular construction was used as just barely a step above, the manufactured home world, and they really were focused on inexpensive housing. And I don't think people just weren't paying attention to the details. I think now most of the modular companies have moved towards a focus on kind of quality. That's not to say that it isn't still out there. I think the biggest place where modular kind of goes off the rails, and where clients and builders kind of are looking at things saying, "Hey, that's not how I would have done it. We shouldn't have done it that way," is when a client pushes the modular company to build something that's outside of their wheelhouse. And what I mean by that is that we build boxes that can travel through our shop and down the road. And if we stay inside our box, we're a very effective way to build at a high quality level. A lot of times, clients or dealers will kind of try to pull the manufacturer more over into a into where a custom builder should have been doing it. And in the end, that's where I think a lot of the builders are kind of walking around the site, or other people are looking at what's going on and say, "Hey, I don't really think that makes sense. Like, that's kind of a mess over there. Or why is that only half finished? Or why they do it like that?" And it's because I don't think the modular plant did a good enough job kind of sticking to their guns and saying, "Well, that's just not our product. Like, if that's the product you want, there are other builders for your product." Which is why, like, in my email to you, I said that I don't ever feel like modular is ever going to be a replacement for the custom end home building, single family home building market. That I think that custom home builders are always going to be better suited to those one-off homes. And modular, I think it's a stretch for us to be getting into that market, versus what we need to do is really, really, really focus on the efficiencies of our shop, and the product that creates, and how do we build better, kind of more standardized product for people at lower prices.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you mentioned in the email that, and then you also said that modulars has a lot greater market acceptance in some sectors of the residential market. Can you tell me about that?
I mean, I kind of, so when I look at the single family residential market, I kind of generically, break it into two categories. There's, for single family residential, there's kind of the developer builders, or the investor builders that are developing out big developments, and they offer models, and they kind of go through and they build the houses, and they usually sell the houses as kind of to be built packages, or they're already built and they build them on spec. So that's that's kind of one simple thing of single family housing. The other is kind of what I consider on your lot single family builders, and these are clients own a piece of land and they go out and they find a builder to come build on their lot. I think modular is perfectly suited to the single family on your lot builder, or client. Those clients, because they're involved with the full design, and they tend to be, they're asking more questions about building envelopes and mechanicals and that kind of stuff. And I think that modular is a great way to deliver to them kind of a higher quality product at a lower price. Your comment in the podcast that I was responding to about the more production, development, investment builders, they already have their system. They're already building what they're building, and they're just going to keep doing that. I think they're more focused on investment, and what they're going to get for a return back, than they are necessarily having the building envelope, building science, mechanical system conversations directly with the client.
What about, like, it would seem to me that modular is perfect for multifamily. Is that true, or is that a whole different animal?
I think I think that modular construction in the very near future is actually going to dominate the multifamily market. We're already seeing massive investments, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars being invested, by companies like SoftBank and Google and Amazon into companies mostly on the West Coast, to be producing these kind of large multifamily structures.
Is this senior housing, or is this like market rate housing? Is it
This
both?
is, I think it's mostly affordable, more affordable rental housing is what they're building, and it makes sense to use modular construction like that to utilize off-site efficiencies, and designing the product around what the factory can do. Um, and they're on the East Coast, there are certainly some existing manufacturers that are certainly moving over into that market as well.
Mm.
So there's a company in Maine that primarily is building multifamily now, that used to be a more residential builder. And there are a couple companies in Pennsylvania that are kind of, they do some residential, but mostly multifamily now.
Is that something your company is taking an active interest in?
We are squarely focused on better built, energy efficient, zero energy ready single family homes.
On the subject, one of the things I've heard building diagnosticians talk about are marriage walls, and how they are often a source of huge amounts of air leakage. And for folks who don't know, it's where the modules meet together, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a weak link.
It is a weak link. So we, in our design system, which probably is the same as most other modular manufacturers, when we're stacking two modules next to each other, there is a designed gap between those modules. And that design gap is, one, so that we can deal with foundations that are never perfect. It also is room so that we can release the cables after setting the modules. We have a cavity that we can kind of pull the cables out from. It is absolutely critical that those marriage wall joints on all four sides, so bottom, sides, top, back down the other side, that those are air sealed before the weather resistant barrier goes on. And so in our product, we air seal that with an expansion foam. There are other companies that use a gasket in that condition. We then also tape all of our seams. So after that's done, there's then there's a tape that goes over that, and then the weather resistant barrier is pulled over it. We have started air testing on all of our turnkey builds where we're the general contractor. We have started doing blower door tests at the end of all construction, every general contracted house, and we are always running between 0.8 and 1.2 ACH 50 on those houses by kind of just, we're not going over the top, we're just paying attention to those details, simply air sealing them, and we're at 0.8, 1.2.
That's pretty impressive. So are you guys using like windows that are out of the ordinary on your more ordinary budget homes? I mean,
we use primarily Anderson 400 series and Marvin Elevate windows. We have done European tilt and turn windows. I wish maybe somebody listening will send me an email about U.S. based supplier for that style of window.
That's your next business, Jason.
Yeah, for us, when we build a house in 96 hours, but it takes us 15 weeks to get windows, it's
a deal breaker.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. So one of the things we routinely hear about in the Fine Homebuilding brand is the difficulty finding and retaining tradespeople. Do you guys have that same difficulty that site builders have?
We definitely are. We're definitely struggling right now with finding carpentry crews for our on-site construction, and they are all subcontractors. And in today's market, Vermont, I think most of the Northeast is very, very hot right now, and so those crews are hard to find. When we do find them and they do start working with them, they generally stick with us for a long time. In-plant employees, we are incredibly lucky, fortunate to have a really, really good group of people working for us. I pulled employee records the other day just to kind of look at it, and right now during COVID, in the middle of winter, we are at 60 employees,
and that's not something that an ordinary Vermont carpenter could count on, right? There's just some times of the year you just simply can't work.
Correct. And so these are employees that we're down from 75 because we are COVID. We are it's hard to get materials. We're worried about not being able to deliver product. We purposely went into this winter at a little bit of a slowed down pace. The last 10 years, we have run full tilt year round. Of the 60 current employees, half of them have been with the company for more than 15 years. And there are 8 of them that have been with the company for more than 35 years. So we're really, really lucky to have a good group of people working for us. We have fathers, sons, cousins, husband, wives, brothers. It's more of it's definitely more of kind of a family community thing in our shop than it is necessarily kind of work environment. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we have to yell, we yell, but we don't.
And you're building houses, which is not easy ever.
Yeah.
The factory's in a pretty rural area. East Montpelier is not known as a population center, even by Vermont standards, right? Is it more difficult to build in a tiny community, a rural area, than it would be in a more metropolitan area?
Our neighbors are a lot of cows. That literally our neighbors is a very large dairy farm. I think that ties back to I think our location is maybe why we've been so lucky with our employees, in that it really is more of kind of a family environment, neighbor kind of a community environment. than it is necessarily a place to just go, collect a paycheck every day. So I think our location is actually a benefit. It also, we also tend to buy our materials from local suppliers as well. We're certainly large enough that if we
went to
wanted
Weyerhaeuser and said you want to buy truckloads of plywood, they would sell it to you.
Yeah, and we don't. Instead, we have kind of a brokered relationship with a local lumberyard. Whereas instead of us going out and joining LMC direct, we use their services to purchase that stuff, and then we pay them fees. We could also buy our paint, direct if we wanted to, but we don't. We literally go to the Main Street paint store and we buy all our paint, through the Main Street paint store. And I think all of that it comes back around. It eventually comes back around.
Do you live in a Huntington home?
I do. I do.
Have you noticed any problems with it? You're not going to say if you have.
Let's just say that my Huntington home is not static. It does not stay still for long. Mine is in a constant state of addition and renovation.
Do you do this work yourself?
I do the work that I want to do myself. My wife.
What are those things? Let's hear it out here.
Yeah, my wife has the cell phone number of my project manager, and she also has cell phone numbers of most of our major subcontractors. And when I am not performing to her liking, she reaches out directly to them and schedules them.
Do you guys have kids?
We do. I have a 12 and a 14-year-old daughters.
Would you want them to be in this business?
If they want to, absolutely. If they want to, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if my 12-year-old pursues something in engineering or architecture.
And the other one?
I don't think she'll pursue engineering or architecture.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jason. Is there anything you want to ask or tell our audience while you're still on the line with us?
No, it's great. Thanks for having me, and thanks for creating this content. I really do enjoy listening to this and the main podcast. It's great. It's great stuff.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to say. What's the company website so we can send folks to look at your homes?
Sure. It's huntingtonhomesvt.com.
I got to talk to you about one of these things when I want to move back to Vermont, man.
Yeah, come back. It's great up here.
I bet the real estate market's pretty pressured.
So we are finding right now, historically, our client base was people that had made the decision to build new homes. With the existing real estate market the way it is, houses being bought unseen, no inspections, cash, over ask, and bidding wars. We're starting to find a lot of people that are looking at us to build them a new home that would have looked to the existing market, but they don't like the franticness that they see in the existing market, and they think that we might be a little bit more controlled way on their terms to kind of build a house.
Wow, it's interesting.
It's an interesting time right now.
Well, Jason, I wish you great success, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Jason for joining us, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building.